Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Youthman. In this video, we're going to be doing a down-out slugfest between the SVS PB16 Ultra and the PSA Power Sound Audio S3611 subwoofer. Now, before we get into the video, if you're into home theater, audio, and video, hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell notification so that you'll be notified when the next video drops. Alright guys, well we are about to do my very first slugfest. Now basically a slugfest is when you take each subwoofer that you're comparing and we're going to run a frequency sweep with REW, which is Room EQ Wizard. If you're not familiar with what REW is, check out this video that I made just a few days ago. I'll post a link to it right up here in the card, as well as in the description below. It'll show you how to set up REW. REW is a free room calibration software that allows you to run some tests and be able to analyze your room, and then you can connect that to something like a mini DSP, which will actually EQ based off of the settings that it found with REW. But for this video, we're not going to be calibrating anything. We just want to see which subwoofer has the most output. And so a big thanks to Steven Smith for giving me this suggestion and giving me the step-by-step walkthrough of how you would actually do it. So basically what we're going to do in this test is we will take the Power Sound Audio S3611 and we'll connect our laptop, connect REW, and we'll run a frequency sweep. Then what we'll do is we'll continue to increase the volume and rerun the REW frequency sweep until we begin to see some changes in the response curve. Once we see the changes in the response curve, that basically tells us that that subwoofer is now hitting distortion, and that's pretty much its peak. And so then we'll back it down a little bit, run it again, and then we'll use that as the final graph for the S3611. Then we will swap positions, so we'll move the S3611 out of that position, take the PB16 Ultra, put it in the same position that the S3611 was in, and run those same procedures until we get to its max output. And so I have no idea how this is gonna go. Let's get ready to rumble! Okay, that was really cheesy, but let's do it. Alright guys, well I have set up the laptop, so I'll be sitting right here in this chair, running all the tests. Right back here behind my primary listening position, I've got the UMIK1 set up on a mic stand. That way we don't get any vibrations when we're really cranking it on this chair headrest back here. And then right over here to the left side of the room is the S3611, so we'll start doing the test with it, run several tests until we get to its maximum output, and then we'll swap out the PB16 Ultra, put that there, and rerun the test. So let's get it started. Alright, before we get into the testing, one of the things I wanted to make sure to do was to turn off the Odyssey. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any kind of extra processing that was going on. But one thing that I found really interesting is when I go into the Marantz SR8012 menu, when I click on audio, for some reason Odyssey is grayed out and it says that I must perform Odyssey setup. It's almost like it wiped out my Odyssey settings from previously, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But for now, I'm assuming Odyssey is turned off, as well as dynamic EQ. Okay, so as you can see, I have REW, which is Room EQ Wizard, open up so that we can kind of measure the response in the room. Now, a couple things before we start this testing. Number one, this testing is dependent upon my room. Because we're measuring it in my room's going to interact different than your room will. So just keep that in mind. There may be peaks or dips in either one of these subwoofers, and that's going to be dependent upon my room, but maybe not necessarily in your room. But I still feel that this test will provide at least some useful information on how both of these subwoofers compare, at least in general. Now, a better method would be to take both of these subwoofers outside in an open field so that we don't have any reflections, and that's called ground plane. But unfortunately, that's just not real practical for me to do that. So I'm just gonna keep it in my room because that's where I listen to these subwoofers. So we're gonna go ahead and come up here to the top left and click Measure. Now what you can see right here is we're going to test from 10 Hertz all the way up to 200 Hertz. We're going to keep this at 5.5 seconds, and that's the duration of the test. Now, one important thing is you don't want to test this too long, because if it's, say, 20 seconds or 30 seconds, you actually could heat up the voice coil and damage it. Now, another thing that we're going to do in this video, you won't see it because I'm going to edit it out, but I'm going to wait between 20 to 30 seconds between each measurement. And again, the other reason is if that voice coil starts to get hot, I want to give it plenty of time to cool down. So we've got everything set up. I've got my calibration file for REW, and we're going to go ahead and click Start Measuring. Oh, before I do that, I want to show you, I have the volume set at -15 dB on the Marantz SR8012. And what we'll do is we'll take a measurement, wait 30 seconds, increase the volume by 3 decibels, and we'll take another measurement. So here's the first measurement. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to scroll up just a little bit so that we can get this kind of centered. And so what we're looking at here is the PB16. If I click right here, this is 10 Hertz. You can see down here. So at 10 Hertz, the PB16 at -15 dB on my receiver was registering at 74 decibels. Now you can see as the frequency increases, so right here is probably about 15 Hertz. If I click there, yep, it's 14.37 Hertz. You can see it increased from 70, I believe, 2 all the way up to 92 decibels. And then when we get right up here, this is right at 20 Hertz. It goes all the way up to 103 decibels. So what this graph is showing us is the PB16 Ultra, when it hits about 20 Hertz in my room, the output begins to decrease as you go to lower frequencies. And once you get down to 10 Hertz, it's going to be a lot less, down to about 72 decibels. You can see there's a couple of dips here. So there's a kind of a null, I guess. And then there's some other little bumps here. So basically, again, what we're going to do is I'm going to increase the volume 3 decibels. We'll run the test again. But first what we're going to do is come up here. And to me, it's important to name these so that you'll kind of know later on what you actually measured. So this is the PB16. Actually, I'll call it SVS PB16. So it's been 30 seconds. So we're actually going to come back here to measure. We're going to increase on my remote from the Marantz, and we're going to go to -12 dB. So that's 3 decibels louder. So now we're going to come down here and click Start Measuring for the second test. Okay, so what we're looking at is we have our first graph here. So that was the first frequency sweep. And then the second one is right above it, the blue line. And so as you can see, it's following the same exact pattern. So there's no real major deviation. And if we zoom in, there should be about 3 decibels in between these two. And so I'm not going to zoom in just so we can see the full spectrum here, but I'm going to click right here. And so we can see over to the left, it's 103.6 decibels. So when I click up here on the top of this line, it should be pretty close to 106. And it is. It's 106. So there's 3 decibels. So as long as we have 3 decibels there, we should be fine because that's not introducing what we call compression. So that's really what we're looking for. We're going to keep increasing the volume until we hit compression. So we're going to come back up to measure. We're going to increase the volume on the Marantz by 3 decibels. So right now we're at -12. So we're going to come up to -9, and we're going to click Start Measuring. All right, so once again, we can see the distance here is basically the same. So we know we're still doing good there. We don't see any major changes. It's following the same pattern. So we're good there. So we're going to increase. Okay, so we were at -9, so we're going to go to -6. And I'm going to hit pause on the video, and I'm going to wait 30 seconds before we make another run. Okay, so it's been 30 seconds. Now before we make the next test, let's just go ahead and name these. So I'm going to call it SVS PB16. The very first one was at -15 dB on the receiver. The next one was 3 decibels louder. So that was -12 dB. And then this last one was SVS PB16. That was at -9. And we're going to come up here and click measure. So we're at -9, so we need to make sure this is at -6, which we're at -6. We're going to click start measuring. All right, so looking at the graph, these are equally spaced. So we've got 3 decibel gain on each time. There's no major changes in the curve. So we're looking good there. So we'll come down here. We'll call this SVS PB16. That's at -6 decibels. We'll come back up here and click measure. I'm going to give it another few seconds. I'll cut the video here, and we'll come back after 20 seconds, and then we'll take another measurement. All right, so we've waited 30 seconds. We're at -6 decibels. So we're going to increase it to -3. We're going to come back up here to measure, and we're going to take a new measurement. All right, now what I'm seeing here is at -3. So I'm going to call this SVS PB16 -3 decibels. Okay, what we can see here, I'm going to check this box down here, and you can see the 2 measurements there. And what you can see is right about here, we've got less than 3 decibels. And then right here, these 2 are almost touching. So at -3 decibels, the PB16 hit its max output. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take the measurement right before that one. So I'm going to turn off this one. That's the -3. So at -6, that was the max. So I'm going to change this name to SVS PB16 Max. Now, it really doesn't matter what the volume was on the receiver. I don't believe that that makes a difference. The biggest thing is just when the actual graph changes. And so we've taken 4 measurements. You can see we started at -15, -12 was okay, -9 was okay, and when we got to -6, that was fine. And then when we took one more at -3, that's when the graph changed. And so that's when we know that compression is starting to take place and the subwoofer is reaching its, or at least pretty close to its max output. And so we're going to use this one as our reference, and that's that green line. And so now what we're going to do is I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to swap the SVS PB16 with the PSA S3611, and then we'll start to do the same test with that subwoofer. Okay, so I have swapped the PB16 Ultra with the Power Sound Audio S3611. I made sure that the S3611 was in the same exact location as the PB16, as well as the microphone is in the same location. So what we're going to do, first I'm going to come down here to the bottom, and I'm going to go ahead and uncheck these 4 lines here. And that way we just see the graph for the S3611. And then at the end of these tests, then we'll go ahead and compare to see kind of where they were at on their max. So we're going to come up here to measure. Now one thing we got to do is go back to our original volume, which was negative 15 decibels. So we'll start there. So we'll take a measurement, wait 30 seconds, take another measurement, and we'll continue to do so until we see the graph change and have less than a 3 decibel difference in the curve. So we'll go ahead and come down here and click Start Measuring. All right, so the first thing that I see that's really quite a bit different is right here in these lower frequencies. Remember on the PB16, at 20 hertz with the PB16, as we got to the lower frequencies, it began to dip downward. But as you can see here, it actually gets stronger. There's more output the lower that it goes. So that's pretty interesting. So we've got plenty of output from this 20 hertz all the way down to 10 hertz, which is pretty incredible. So let's go ahead and make sure that we name this. So we'll come down here and we'll call this PSA S3611, and that's at negative 15 decibels. All right, so we've waited 30 seconds. We'll go ahead and come up here to measure. We're going to increase it 3 decibels, which would put us at negative 12. And we're going to come down here and hit Start Measuring. Okay, and we can see that there's 3 decibels in between these two measurements. They look exactly the same on the curve. So we're going to come down here, PSA S3611, and that's at negative 12 decibels. We'll wait another 20 seconds, and then we'll take another measurement. All right, so I've waited 20 seconds. Let's come up here to measure. We're going to increase the volume from negative 12 to negative 9. And we're going to come down here and hit Start Measure. So once again, we see there's equal distance between each one of these measurements. So we haven't reached compression yet. So we'll come over here and name this one PSA S3611, and that is at negative 9 decibels. We'll give it another 20 seconds, and we'll take our fourth measurement. All right, I've waited 20 seconds. So let's come up here to measure. So we were at negative 9, so we're going to increase this to negative 6. And we're going to come down here and hit Start Measuring. All right, everything looks good. Well, okay. So right here, it actually is a little bit less. I don't think that's quite 3 decibels. And I did hear some distortion in the woofer. So I'm going to say that this red line right here is going to be our final line. So we're going to come down here to the green. We're going to turn that one off. We'll come over here to the red. And we're going to call this max. So now what I want to do is I'm going to turn all of these off. Okay, so we're going to come over here and we're going to turn on this number 4. This was the SVS PB16 Max. So this is why it's important to name each curve so that you know exactly what you were measuring. So this was the max output of the SVS PB16. And then we're going to come down here to number 8, which was the PSA S3611 Max. And we're going to turn that one on. So basically what we're looking at here are 2 different response curves. And what this tells us is how much volume or how much output at each frequency. So if we look at kind of some differences here, let's just start right here. So if I click here, it shows us that this is almost 15 hertz. So this is 14.93 hertz. So let's just say at 15 hertz, both the PB16 Ultra and the S3611 were at the same volume. They both had an output of 102.8. So where they start to differ is when we start getting lower than 15 hertz. So below 15 hertz, you can see the S3611 actually had more output. And the green line represents the PB16. You can see it began to lose output. Now, more than likely, this has a lot to do with the fact that the S3611 is a sealed design and the PB16 is a ported design. Typically, with a ported design, you're going to get more output at or around its tuning frequency. And more than likely, that's why we see an increase right here. So this is kind of where the PB16 shines. So we got lots of output here. This goes up to about 110 decibels. So right in here between, say, 15 hertz all the way up to, if I click right here, probably about 28. So yeah, so we're right at about 28 hertz. So from 15 hertz to 28 hertz, the PB16 has more output. And so if I click just to compare, I can click here. So we see the PB16 at 25 hertz is outputting at 110 decibels. And if I come right below it and click on the line for the S3611, if I can get my cursor pretty close there. Come on, right? Yeah, right there. So if I click there, it goes from 110 decibels to 101. So there's 9 decibels difference between the 3611 and the PB16 up here. But then over here, let's see how much difference. So at 10 hertz, tell you what, we'll start right here. So at 10 hertz is going to be about right there. So the PB16 at 10 hertz, if I click here, it had an output of 85 decibels. And at 10 hertz, the S3611 had 105 decibels. So we're talking 20 decibels louder at 10 hertz. Now, I'll be honest, guys, that's pretty stinking amazing. To be able to have 10 decibels more at those really, really low octaves. Now, keep in mind, we really can't hear about 20 hertz and below. So our human hearing doesn't really hear this, but this is what they call subsonic frequencies. So these are frequencies that you can feel. So when you've got a major explosion in a movie, from what I can see based on this chart, these lower frequencies, you're going to have a lot more output and a lot more tactile feel from 10 hertz all the way up to, what did we say, 15 hertz. But those frequencies from 15 hertz all the way up to, say, 28 hertz, right here you'll see the PB16 has the advantage. And in my room, you can see both of these had a dip right here. So again, that could be due just to the acoustics of my room, but we see that we've got both the same dip. However, the PB16, for whatever reason, has a much more significant dip. And so at this frequency, we're looking at 35 hertz, we're going to experience a null here. There's going to be a lack of bass. And the bad thing with nulls is you really can't correct that with things like a mini DSP, even Odyssey or Dirac or ARC, whatever room correction software your receiver has. And so the best thing we can do is try to fix the issues acoustically, either with acoustic panels, bass traps, or repositioning the subwoofer to another location. And so above 35 hertz, we can see they were both pretty much on the same level. And so right here is 80 hertz. That's where typically you'll run your crossovers for your subwoofers or for your mains so that your subwoofer takes over. And so here we can see that the PB16 had an output of 105 decibels and the S3611 had an output of 100 decibels. So about 5 decibels difference there. All right, guys, well, there you have a slugfest of the Power Sound Audio S3611 versus the SVS PB16 Ultra. Now, just looking at the graphs alone, it's hard to tell which one is a quote winner. I know a lot of you guys have been asking me, Michael, which one do you like better? Do you like the S3611 or do you like the PB16? Well, just looking at the graphs alone really doesn't declare a winner because, as we saw, each one has its own strengths. The S3611 is going to have more output in my room in that location from say 20 Hertz down to 10 Hertz. So if you're looking for a subwoofer that'll hit down to those single digits, the S3611 appears to be the better choice. But then we saw the PB16 Ultra kind of excelled from say 20 Hertz up to about 30 Hertz. And that's basically because that's around its tuning frequency and it's supported enclosure. So it's going to have more output in those frequencies. So guys, I'm not going to declare a winner in this video, but in a future video, I will share with you my opinion because I want to determine which one sounds best to my ears in my room, in my theater. Now in a future video, I'll be sharing a final review on the S3611 because I want to still demo some other material, some movies, and really see how does it perform, not just on a graph and not just on a chart, how does it perform as well as what is the experience like with it, especially with those subsonic frequencies. So I'm excited to check that out and share with you my opinion, hopefully within the next week or two. Now guys, I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Was this video helpful? Now this is my first venture into using REW, but I definitely can see the value of it. As we saw in the previous video, just moving the subwoofer a few inches can greatly impact what that curve looks like. And so by moving it, you can actually find a better frequency response, which will give you more even response from your listening position. Now, if you found this video helpful, be sure to smash that like button. And if you're new to the channel, definitely consider subscribing because I produce weekly content on home theater, audio, and video. And if you're interested in either one of these subwoofers, I'll post links to them in the description. And also, if you're interested in purchasing a UMIK1 microphone so that you can do your own testing with REW in your home theater, I'll post links to it down in the description as well. Well guys, as always, you be blessed, and we'll catch you in the next video.